Rome. Rome never conquered Babylon. Rome never conquered the Medo-Persians. Rome never conquered all of the Greek territories. But the kingdom that's coming, that next kingdom, the kingdom of legs, will conquer them all. You look at the map today, and you know what you see? Turkey is Muslim, Iraq is Muslim, Iran is Muslim, Afghanistan is Muslim, Pakistan is Muslim, Syria is Muslim. They conquered all of that area that's being talked about here. Now, Walid Shobat is the one that, first started opening my eyes on this, but I want you to understand historically, John Wesley taught things like this. Bishop Fulton Sheen, Sir Robert Anderson, Martin Luther, John Calvin, Jonathan Edwards, all of them thought that Islam played a major focus in the last days. Now, here's one other thing I want to bring out of this. As you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay, do you know what the word for mixed in Hebrew is? Arab. You can look it up. It is the Strong's word number 6,150. Now, let's turn over to Daniel chapter 7. Nebuchadnezzar's view was this great statue. Now we're going to get God's view of exactly the same thing. In chapter 7, verse 1, in the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions in his head while on his bed. Then he wrote down the dream, telling the main facts. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. And four great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. Again, what are waters? Waters represent people, right? The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. That's a picture of Babylon. The symbol of Babylon is that of a lion. You go to the ancient ruins of Babylon today, on the bricks, you'll still see the Lion of Babylon. Unequivocally, that was its symbol. And its wings were plucked off and was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man. And a man's heart was given to it. Now, verse number 5, the next beast. It's a Medo-Persian beast. And suddenly another beast, a second like a bear, was raised up on one side, and had 3 ribs in his mouth between his teeth, and said to it thus, arise and devour much flesh. Because the Medo-Persian Empire, the Persian side was stronger than the Mede side in that. So that's the next beast that came. The next one was the Grecian beast. This was Alexander the Great. After this I looked, and there was another like a leopard. Alexander, with lightning speed, conquered that part of the world. In fact, he wept at 35, saying there were no more worlds to conquer. And it was like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. Because what happened after Alexander the Great died? The kingdom of the Greeks were divided between 4 generals. Alexander the Great had no children. So 4 generals, so that kingdom would end up having 4 heads. And again, a head is representative in the Bible of a king. After this, now we come to the next one. I saw in the night vision, behold, a 4th beast, dreadful, terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth, and it was devouring and breaking in pieces and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. Again, we come to this symbol that's used in the book of Revelation. Now, in Revelation chapter 12, in verse number 3, It says, another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on its head. So there again, we see the exact same language, don't we? In Revelation chapter 13, in verse 1, I stood on the sand of the sea. And again, the sea always represents the peoples of the world. And I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and on its horns 10 crowns, and on his on his head, a blasphemous name. Now the beast, this is the Antichrist, this is Satan incarnate, listen, was like a leopard. Who's leopard? Alexander the Great. His feet were like the feet of a bear. Who was the bear? The Medo-Persian Empire. And his mouth like the mouth of a lion. Babylon. So we see that the Antichrist rises up out of that kingdom. Now remember what I said. And it's interesting because it's in reverse order. Do you catch that? John is looking back at history, and he does the one closest to him and next to him and next to him and next to him, where Daniel was looking to it in the future. So it's exactly the same things, just in reverse order. But what you need to see, the Antichrist comes out of this. This is where the Antichrist comes out of. Rome never conquered that area. Ever in the history of the Roman Empire, it was not there. Okay? Now let's go back to Daniel. It was different from all the beasts who were before it, and it had 10 horns. And as I was considering the horns, there was another horn, a little one. This is the Antichrist. It's going to arise out of this, coming up from among before them, before whom the 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horns were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. This is always a description of the Antichrist. He's a big mouth. Now let's go back and we look in the areas, and again, the Bible is always written from one focus. That focus, where is the center of the world? It is Jerusalem. It is the nation of Israel. The first horn that comes along the scene is the Egyptian horn, which rules Israel. The Egyptian horn is plucked out by the Assyrian horn. The Assyrian horn is plucked out by the Babylonian horn. The Babylonian horn is plucked out by the Medo-Persian horn. The Medo-Persian horn is plucked out by the Grecian horn. And remember what happened to the Grecian kingdom? It was divided into 4 generals. So that's 4 more horns, which were plucked out by Rome, who controlled Israel at the time of Jesus. And the Roman horn was plucked out by the Islamic horn. And they were cast out. So you know what that adds up to? 10 horns. Each one plucked out by the other one. But there's another horn. A little horn. That little horn is the Antichrist, the mystery Babylon religion that rises up in the last day. Who plucks out that horn? Jesus plucks out that horn. Hallelujah. And that's why, my friends, as we look at this, it all makes perfect sense. That all these horns, all these heads which represent kingdoms and kings, they all make sense. Now again, the Islamic kingdom, you got to understand history, and this is why I'm so excited to go to Turkey. And I truly believe this may be one of the only opportunities I'll ever have in my life to be able to do this, because the Turkish Empire is again returning to the power and the might that it had when it was the head of the Islamic Caliphate. Now, you're going to hear these terms. You hear it in Libya today. You hear it in Egypt today. All of the trouble that is in Syria today. This is all setting the stage for this rise of the Islamic Caliphate from Turkey. Here's what happened. Rome fell in the year 400. Okay, the barbarians came in. Rome isn't anything anymore. It's not the world power. That was the western part of the Roman Empire. The eastern part of the Roman Empire had a capital. Expelled great influence all across Turkey. The name of the capital was Constantinople. Constantinople, named after Constantine, the first Roman Empire to become a Christian. Constantinople lasted 1,000 years. 1,000 years longer than Rome. All right? In the 1400s, a Muslim general in 1453, led by Mehmet II, he came to the walls of Constantinople. And Turkey had developed something that was very powerful, that was new to the world at that point, gunpowder. And they had cannons. And thus, they defeated the Christian Roman Empire. And my friends, do a Google search, go online, and you will find atrocities beyond measure. Because in Islam, and this is how they grow in strength, Muhammad laid it out that whatever you conquered in battle, you got to keep. You would then, out of everything that you got to keep, you would give a fifth of it as a tax to jihad. And they'll always try to tell you, well, jihad really isn't war. It's a tax to take care of the poor. And a certain portion of it would go to the poor. But, my friends, 80% you kept for yourself, which meant 80% of the women. Because in Islam, it doesn't matter, if you have slaves that you have sex with. The 80% of the children. And one thing that you have to understand is Islam, it is taught, it is practiced today. Saudi Arabia has a huge human trafficking issue, of which we'll never say a word about. You know why we won't say a word about? We're drunk. We're drunk on their oil. We have a very big thirst. And if we, actually said you shouldn't be having sex with boys that are hairless, would be in big trouble. I saw a documentary, or not a documentary, it was a secret camera. A mullah in Afghanistan buying an 11-year-old boy. Because that's perfectly all right. You read the history. You read the history of Islam throughout history. This has always been a part of it. Besides the silver and the gold and all of this, in the battle for Constantinople, when they broke through the walls, all the raping and murdering and pillaging that was going on, the Muslim forces that were on the sea saw everyone in town taking all this stuff. They're missing out on all the fun. So they abandoned their post, and the only Christians that got away were those that escaped through the sea, because the Muslims who were at the sea didn't want to miss out on all the pillaging and raping and things that were going on in the city. When they went in, they killed everybody. In fact, there were some families who just committed suicide rather than their daughters and their boys fall into the hands of these people. And the first thing they did was go to St. Sophia's. And they looted all of the treasures out of it and made St. Sophia's, which was the biggest church in the world, a mosque. And my friends, it is a mosque to this day. And in October, I'm going to stand in it. It is built as a monument to the victory over the Christians. Now, does that shed any light on the 9/11 mosques that they want to